Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Game. This is Tiffany Lewis. I'm excited about today's show. It's season 2. We have a new setup at B&R Studios in downtown Charlotte. So if you follow us on the video piece, you'll see we're out overlooking the city and it's just amazing. But hey, Gerard Littlejohn is in the building. He is the director of the Steve Smith Family Foundation, and they're doing so much to make a big impact in the city of Charlotte. And so I want to welcome him, and thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Let's Talk Game. Hey, Gerard.
What's going on?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's Talk Game. I normally don't jump right into it like that, but
okay.
You are familiar, so you can. So I can do that, but this is the first episode in our new season. I chimed at a season because we have a set change. I was explaining that to you today.
I've never been a part of a season premiere.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, season 2, why not?
Okay, cool. It feels like something that should be on Netflix.
Can we get it on Netflix?
I don't know.
You know enough people.
I don't. My film production contacts are a little bit slacking, but we'll figure it out.
We did talk about that, but we're going to work towards that.
That's right.
But your sports contacts are not slacking.
You can argue no.
No. And so we're going to talk about that and a little more. But for the people who don't know, Gerard, tell them a little bit about you as far as personally, not what you do professionally, but just personally really quick. Where are you from? It's a lot of Southern hospitality in the room. I'm from Charlotte and you're from
Lexington, North Carolina.
And so give people an idea where that's from, like how far from Charlotte is Lexington?
So I grew up about an hour north of Charlotte, little town called Lexington. I'm actually born in Charlotte. Lived here with my mom and my aunt for I guess a couple years, and then we moved up to Lexington. Had a lot of family up there. So I grew up. You asked me personally, so I'll shoot it to you personally.
Yeah.
I grew up single parent home. It was me, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother, and my cousin. 5 of us in a 3-bedroom apartment in what you'd consider basically the housing project of Lexington, North Carolina. So probably a microcosm of what you see a lot of time in Charlotte when we talk about affordable housing or you talk about low income housing. So something similar to that. So I grew up and that was my life. That was how I came up. And so kind of not your unique family unit, a little bit non-traditional, but looking back on it, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I love the way that I grew up. So we didn't have a lot, but we made do, and so that was my household. We lived there up until I was maybe 10 or 11 years old, and then we moved into a single family house, and still not in the best of neighborhoods, but definitely an improvement of where we were living. But I grew up, just kind of small town USA a little bit, but the community I lived in was very much, African American, Hispanic, definitely Caucasian as well. So I still had a kind of a diverse background, but my high school was, predominantly black and Hispanic. But I grew up, kind of smart kid, tried to keep myself out of trouble, but got involved in sports at a very early age. And that was always kind of my outlet. It was how I got around a lot of, men who helped influence me, whether it was coaches or teachers. I got around that, and then also kind of built a community of just guys who are now some of my best friends, and also have launched either their own businesses or now have their own families and are outstanding fathers. So I got around those guys, and we helped make each other better. So what led to me going to UNC Charlotte, and then having the career that I have now. So just you didn't ask me career wise, but I'll bump to that.
No, it's okay.
I run the foundation of former NFL player Steve Smith, and have been doing that now for about 3 years, and also do like some consulting and PR on the side through my own company called the Level 1 Agency. So been doing that for like the last year or so. So life is good, but it's also, it's one of those things to where now I get a chance to work in communities, and I get a chance to make a difference. And I think the cool thing is I understand people being on the opposite end of needing, I don't even like saying a handout, but on the opposite end of needing assistance. I get a chance to do that day to day now, and it's cool because I have that perspective because I was that kid, right? And so really what I do is really to use all this stuff that I've attained, whether it's working for Steve Smith or working for the Charlotte Hornets or working, in NASCAR and all these other things that I've done. It's really been about the platform to be able to go ahead.
There are a plethora of foundations out there. It seems like that's the blueprint. Hey, become a professional athlete.
Yeah. And
I don't know who kind of directs the athlete to say, let's start this nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
But there are plenty of them, and some of them are just sitting. I'm going to lay it straight. It's a tax shelter, right? In many causes.
For some people.
For some.
Yeah.
But tell me, why is the Steve Smith Family Foundation different than any of those?
So, I mean, it really goes, it really goes to the founder, right? Steve and his wife, Angie, they started a foundation in 2013 to really champion some issues that were really at both of their hearts. And so one being domestic violence. Steve's mother was a victim of domestic violence coming up. He grew up in L.A., so coming up, it was not his father, it was his mom's boyfriend and subsequently husband at the time, but he witnessed it as early as age 5. And so a lot of statistics show that kids who witness violence at that early age oftentimes are repeaters of violence, but in Steve's case, he's not. He's an advocate against it. So I think that's really cool. But that's something, again, that we talk about living through things. That's something that he lived through. And then the other thing that we focus on is family health and wellness. A lot of people hear health and wellness and they think healthy eating and active lifestyle and all that's part of it. But really, the way that we address it is, how do you stabilize families? How do you get families the adequate health care that they need? How do you get families, the best holistic mental health care, spiritual health care? So that's kind of how we address it. And so, again, those are things that you live through. You live through having to go from house to house or couch to couch, or not necessarily getting, medical care or dental care or all these different things. So that's how we help to do those things. And for us, you mentioned, for some athletes, I won't say a lot, but for some athletes, it's a tax shelter. It may be a way to, give someone a salary. For us, we're really making a difference in Charlotte. And I know we'll get into a lot of the things that we're doing to help provide some direct services, but we're really doing things here in Charlotte, and it's really refreshing, and it's really cool to see someone so invested in a community like Steve is.
So no, let's not hold back. You just explained how you all are different, and I already knew, but I think for the people who listen, you may not understand what nonprofit work looks like, the setup of it, and so you kind of gave them a glimpse. So you explained how it's different, right? Okay, but explain how you all are accessible in doing those things that you just described, like being the ones to provide dental care, or being the ones to kind of give a hand. I don't want to say it. That sounds bad.
You're just giving assistance.
Assistance.
That's what it is. And
really,
you're serving people is probably even better
like
word,
that.
right?
I
Serving
like
people. And so, since November 2016, we launched what's called the Smith Family Wellness Center. And so it is a low-income and affordable clinic right on the corner of Central Avenue and Eastway. So in East Charlotte, where there's already a huge population of people who don't have transportation, huge population of people who live under the poverty line. You've got a population of refugee, international families, and then just regular low-income families that are American, just like me and you. And so we help to serve people through an organization we work with called Project 658, and then we also have a huge partner in Novant Health that have come on board and provide us with physicians and kind of some other administrative support. But it's been open since 2016. We have now, and I just had some updated numbers, just in 2018 alone, we've served about 1,200 people.
Okay.
Thus far, we've probably served, we're probably knocking right around 4,500 so far, and just since November 2018. And so it is medical and counseling. From the medical side, we see everything just like a regular family practice or pediatrician would see, because we have those doctors, that work within our walls. But we also, from a counseling standpoint, we serve a lot of families that have been impacted by domestic violence, who've been impacted by other trauma or abuse. We see a lot of mental health health, which is which is huge in our communities, and so it's been really cool. Not a lot of athlete foundations, or really not a lot of nonprofits, to be completely honest with you, are able to provide direct services, and we are through this clinic. And so we bought the building and the land and retrofitted the building, and we did all that stuff. Like I said, we launched it in November of 2016, and since then it's really grown, and our volumes have gone through the roof, and we're serving a lot of people, and we're getting a lot of eyeballs now, and we're getting great partners like Novon and Verizon and Elevation Church, and a lot of people who help pour into that center and help, and not even about the dollars, but about the resources, right? So like, for example, Novant, again, like I said, they help to provide physicians that, when we're a nonprofit and Project 658 is a nonprofit, you've got people you're relying on volunteers, you're relying on someone else, but to actually have, full-time doctors, that's more valuable than money, right? Mm-hmm. That is being able to physically, for lack of a better words, impact someone and give them the care that they need. So it's not even just about dollars. The dollars are nice, but to be able to have those kind of relationships are invaluable.
So is it safe to say that the families that you all are serving and have served over the, past few years are like family?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you get it. The cool thing about the relationship that we have with Project 658 is that 658 basically serves as a hub, right? They have a ton of what you call wraparound services, to where someone may come in for an English as a second language course, or a workforce development course, or they have a culinary program where they help teach people culinary skills to get a kitchen job. They do clothing bank. They do all these tons of services. And what's really cool is, people come in for one thing, but then you find out they need assistance somewhere else. You may come in for the culinary program, and we find out you've experienced some trauma, in the last couple of years. Well, now we've got a counseling center to help see you. So there's all these different, what you call, points of access to where people can come in and, for one thing, but you start to see them, in other facets and other areas. So it's really cool. And yeah, it's definitely like family. And I think we also approach it to where, again, going back to what I said before, that's been me, that's been Steve, that's been a lot of the folks that helped to and volunteer at this clinic. It's been us on the other end. So I think that's the most important thing.
I'm interested to know, you are like, I kind of look at you all like the Batman and Robin, right? And so we know that Steve was ferocious on the field.
Yeah.
So does he have that same game face when he approaches this line of business?
Without a doubt.
And so how do you all balance each other? Like, what does that look like? And how do you calm him down from, seriously, is it junk talk?
Well, it's different. Well, I'll say it's passion, but it's passion resonates in two different ways, right? When passion on a field is, you going in front of your competitor and literally trying to destroy them. But then you take that same passion, you put it in the community, and it is being relentless upon trying to get that person help, or trying to get that person to the next level of care. So it's the same passion, but it comes out in different ways. Just from, I guess, personally, just kind of the relationship that he and I have. We're a two-man show, right? Mm-hmm. I'm the executive director. He's the founder. Yeah. So we're a two-man show. So there are places where he's very good and I'm not. There are places where I'm very good and he's not. And we help to balance each other out that way. The cool thing is we have kind of similar upbringings. We have kind of similar I guess strategy wise, we're very similar to where we see the big picture, and we don't let that impact kind of the small things. So there are ways from operationally that we help to balance each other out, but absolutely the same passion is just resonated in different ways.
So not ferocious, it's passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I'm just joking.
But I get exactly what you're saying, and I think that's you're spot on, because if you didn't have that same type of passion or ferociousness, we wouldn't be where we are. So for him to have that level of care and that level of just wanting to make a difference in this community that he didn't even grow up in, right? Mm-hmm. Let's keep in mind he grew up in LA. So to have that passion for a community here in Charlotte, where you played for so many years and has invested into him, you take that same passion and you invest back into this community that he calls home now. which is really cool.
So what are you all's plans for scaling the foundation? What does that look like?
That's a great question. I think, where we're at right now is probably stabilization. So it is taking this clinic that we have, and now we bring on a partner in a healthcare system like Novant that helps to really, level everything. And that's a game changer to have professionals in what they do. To come in and come alongside us in that clinic. Who knows? I think that there's growth opportunities. I think just having this one clinic does not solve the problem of being able to give people adequate health care that may not have insurance, that may be underinsured, that don't have the same type of access that some of us take for granted. So one clinic does not solve the problem. Does it help balance things out? Yes, but I think there's still a need in Charlotte. There's still a need across the state of North Carolina. So I think it's gonna be for us figuring out maybe what's the next step. But because it's so vast and the problem of healthcare, not just from a medical healthcare, I also want to make sure I'm clear, like not just from a medical standpoint, but from the counseling standpoint. When we talk about healthcare, it's also a big proponent of that is mental health. And I don't think that's something that's going away. I think that's something that now we're seeing as we start to break down stigmas and we start to break down the access of people's spiritual and mental well-being. Again, those are things that don't go away. And so I think it's just figuring out where we continue to kind of put our stake in the ground when it comes to our foundation. But I think the clinic is something that is a huge part. And then for us, it's also trying to continue to figure out ways to bring people into the fold. So we just launched this year what's called Team 89, which is our volunteer program, to where thus far we've had about 3 huge volunteer opportunities. We partnered with Enterprise and we went out to Dress for Success to help kind of organize and lay out and help them with their donations. And Dress for Success helps women who have come out of imprisonment, who've come out of domestic violence themselves or addiction, help to get them back into the workforce. So we partner with them. We've done an event with Beds for Kids, and we team up with Elevation Church, and we help serve them. And so we'll continue to do that. We've done a habitat house with Spectrum, and so we bought siding and we put siding on the side of a house for a domestic violence survivor. So that's part of how we're able to bring more people into the fold and say, hey, it's great that we're doing this clinic, and it's great that we do fundraising events like our golf event or like our bowling event. And that's great. Those raise money for the programs that we're working on. But the volunteer program is really cool because you're able to give up something that's more valuable than money, and that's your time.
Yeah.
You can't get your time back.
What
I decide to invest my time in, whether it is the foundation or whether I invest my time as a father or I invest my time, I never get that time back. Right. So anything you choose to invest your time in, you are saying without a doubt that I believe in this. So for people to say, you know what, on a Saturday morning, I'm going to come and volunteer with you guys for 2 hours, 3 hours, that's time you'll never get back. That you could have been with your family, that you could have been on your job, that you could have been on your own personal interests. So to have people come and give their time, that's really cool. So shameless plug, you can go on stevesmithfamilyfdn.org/team89 to sign up for it. But no, it's really cool. So we'll just continue to just stabilize, I think, and we're getting into a groove. We're still really young, right? I mean, the foundation only launched in really 2013. So still relatively new, 5 years old. We just in kindergarten. So it's really cool though. And I'm blessed to be a part of it. That's the other thing. It's really a blessing to see the impact. And we have this clinic and we were just in there the other day for, we have a monthly staff meeting. And so we were just in there the other day and to see, as I'm exiting out, to see a family of 3 that's in there that's waiting for healthcare, and me remembering that this was an idea that I pitched to Steve, and we went through weeks and months of planning and figuring out and working with contractors and working with land surveyors and all this different stuff to see it come to fruition and to walk right past a family who's now waiting on care. Man, it's surreal. So it's been really cool. It's been really cool.
Probably a lot of tears.
There's been some tears. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can admit that. I mean, it's from both of us.
Absolutely,
You know?
and then from the recipients as well.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what makes it real, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it real when you're able to see something go from soup to nuts, from ideation to execution, and you're able to see that, and now that also involves getting people the care that they need. Like I don't know what that family was going through that I walked past, but I know that they had a need for something, and they came to that clinic to receive care for something. And so at some point in time, both of those, those plates have shifted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere along the line, we've met in the middle somewhere to give them what they've needed. And so that's awesome, and it's something you can't take for granted.
And what makes it even real, right here outside of this studio, outside of this window, is a soup kitchen. Mm-hmm. And they line up faithfully every day to serve homeless men and women. Mostly men, I would say, are the ones who are the recipients. But and you are also able to see the mental health issues that are really plaguing our city.
Right.
And so I applaud you all, because Charlotte, when you say he grew up in L.A., Steve grew up in L.A., you're beginning to see, all you have to do is walk the uptown city streets of Charlotte, and probably on the outskirts as well. You see how mental illness is plaguing our community. You see firsthand where child hunger and the food deserts are. And you see, if you can't eat, then how are you really paying for medical care? So I applaud you all what you're doing.
That's what you're talking about is called social determinants of health.
That's big.
So
you went too big on me.
I know my stuff now.
you went too big on me.
I know my stuff. No, that is really that's the actual term that you call it. So if I don't have a great job, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm struggling if I'm at or near the poverty line, I'm not thinking about healthcare right now. I'm thinking about trying to keep my job.
Yeah.
Because I got this high rent, right? So affordable housing is a huge issue in Charlotte right now, to where people can't afford, rents are going up, inventory of housing is very low, and so people can't afford. So you've got a lot of people who are at or below the poverty line that at some point in time, I think it's called like the poverty cliff or whatever, but if my expenses go larger than what my income is, at some point in time, you're just going to go right off of the cliff. And so you see a lot of that, and it's unfortunate, and we're just doing our part. But all that stuff ties in together, and so while healthcare, has been a hot button issue, in Charlotte and North Carolina, across our nation, all those things play a factor, and I think that's what's so cool about our clinic is that we're able to touch, and our partnership with 658, we're able to help provide across all those things, right? We're able to, as I talked about before, you may come in for an English as a second language class because you're trying to learn the language so that you can get a job, but you've got some other trauma or whatever that needs to be taken care of, and we got a one-stop shop. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. A lot of people don't know that you had past experience in the NBA. And so let's kind of tie this, I
didn't dribble a basketball.
You didn't
let's
dribble a basketball.
Let's be very transparent.
But you could have been Spud Webb.
No.
Muggsy Bogues.
No.
I could have been.
No, that was not for me.
Not for you. And you learned that quick.
Very quick.
But you've always been on the, professional facing of an athlete side. This is nothing new to you. The nonprofit is different, right? But I want to tie it all in, because the point is, being in arenas where there's a lot of money involved. People look at athletes, and let's just be real. They believe, they see dollar signs, right? Okay, so understanding how the inner workings of professional sports goes, and then now you're on this side, the philanthropic side almost. How do you address, and maybe you haven't been met with this, but how do you all address, Steve has this money, he played in the NFL for this many years, why can't he just use his own money to give back? Are you all tasked with that question? I mean, because it really speaks to economic mobility. You're talking about economic mobility and all of the partners who support it. But how do you draw that line of separation and saying, well, we can't just use our dollars. It's more than that. Where does that conversation go?
What you're talking about is really stigma, right?
Yeah.
So there is, I think, another layer that a lot of athlete foundations, and I'm using air quotes because I really don't consider us an athlete foundation. I truly don't. We're a nonprofit. We just so happen that our founder used to play professional football. So I hesitate to use athlete foundation because that's so. That in itself is stigmatized because I think a lot of people are used to, just going to a really cool event, and it's part of a foundation.
Bowling,
and that's it.
golf.
Yeah, and we do that. I mean, we have those events, right? And so we make those an experience, but we also are very, very, very careful and also very adamant about making sure that the events that we have, that straight up that, hey, one, here's where the money is going, and two, here's our impact. Like we always, anytime you come to one of our events, we always have kind of our year in review, and we have this impact infographic. And so we share, hey, how many people have we helped? How many turkeys did we buy? How many? But that's seriously, like up in Baltimore last year, we partnered with an organization called Adopt a Block, and we donated about 200 turkeys to this specific organization so that they can hand out turkeys for for Thanksgiving holiday. So
they were non-GMO, by the way. Steroid free.
Yeah. All that stuff. But you always know exactly what you're doing. But what you're talking about is stigma. And so I think that's what we found early on that we were going to have to overcome. One was stigma, to where exactly what you're saying, right? It's, why should I give my money to Steve Smith or whatever athlete that chooses to do something in the community? Why should I give you my money because you have millions of dollars? So why should I give you my money? And then the other thing that you have to be careful with, and that we had to be careful with, was the same thing. These events, you raise money to go to another organization, and you immediately become a go-between, right? And in today's society, it is so easy to give to nonprofit organizations simply from your phone, right? Simply from your laptop. You don't have to, go through a third party really that much anymore. So those are two things that we saw immediately that, we were going to have to battle against. And so that's why we were so really focused on what can we do that we can provide direct services? What can we do to where we can really tangibly create something that you can walk into, that you can feel, that you can touch? So that's why that clinic was so important to us, because it gave us that, right? So now you literally have people walking through the door. You literally have people coming through and getting care. So
you wear a lot of hats,
right?
And I think it's a great thing where you don't have to shortchange your past experiences, and you've allowed yourself to grow and started your own company. So what is that about?
So really, back in 2014, maybe, how these years running together.
When you have, when you have children, they do.
All these years run together. Yeah. Somewhere back then, I just got to get some more context. I started out right out of college. As you said, I worked for, then they were the Charlotte Bobcats, they're the Charlotte Hornets now.
Tell people where you went.
Yeah, I worked.
You went to UNCC.
I went to UNC Charlotte. Okay. I mentioned it. I did.
Oh, you
I brought
did?
that up.
I'm sorry.
So I went to UNC Charlotte. I graduated with a communications degree, public relations minor. And so while I was at UNC Charlotte, I interned in the NBA for the Charlotte Bobcats. Did that for a summer, and really this game is about relationships. Like I think a lot of people think it's about what you know, and a lot of people think it's about what you can accomplish. It's relationships. Like if you can build relationships and nurture relationships, then you'll get ahead in, I won't even say the sports business, but I'd say PR, communications, really anything. I think relationships span across the globe and the gambit. But that's a side note. That's just, I won't charge you for that little tidbit of information. That one's a freebie. But no, I graduated with a PR degree, did that for a summer, built some great relationships within that building. A huge mentor that I actually just posted about last night, a guy named BJ Evans, who at that point in time was a public relations manager. I built a relationship with him, and I remember going into his office after my internship and saying, hey man, like, I had a lot of fun. For me, it was a little bit of a struggle because I'm a first generation college student. I still had work study. I had loans. So I had a work study job. I had a part-time job. Literally, as I'm peeking around in this studio, literally I worked at the Marriott right over here.
Okay.
And I worked
one block up.
I worked in the maintenance department. My mom was an administrative assistant, so she got me a job working part-time. So I was doing all this at the same time, being a student, part-time at Marriott, work study on campus. So I would have to sometimes leave my internship early or stay a little bit later. And so I just had to adjust my schedule. And so I said, man, I know I was kind of in and out, but I had a lot going on. But I already talked with my advisor. She said I can do another internship in the fall if you let me. So, hey, can I come back in the fall and do another internship? And his direct quote to me, I'll never forget it. He said, why would I give you an internship when I can give you a job? And so he hired me part-time for my senior year to just work on the game nights. So that, afforded me to where I didn't have to work at the Marriott and I didn't have to do my work study anymore. So I did that. That was my only part-time job my senior year. So my senior year, I'm getting experience plus I'm getting paid. So for me, it was best of both worlds. Man, I was on top of the world my senior year. And so so I did that for a little while, and again, just continue to build relationships and build contacts, and as you've talked about before, build equity with a lot of the athletes that we had at that time, Raymond Felton, and Gerard Wallace, and Steven Jackson, and all these different guys. And so, built a just great rapport with them, and started to work with coaches and agents and other media people, and so I just started building out these contacts, and shortly thereafter, graduate. I walked right into a job, so I worked for the Bobcats for really about another year and a half after that, straight out of school. And the not so great part about this business is that sometimes there are layoffs, there are things that you can't impact. So this was 2008, right when the market crashed and everyone was struggling, and so unfortunately I lost that job from a budget cut perspective. But looking back again, that's one of the best things that ever happened to me because it opened my eyes to the business of sports. And so I left there, went to Lowe's up in Mooresville, and started out working in public relations, doing a lot of like their store grand openings. But quickly I again, mentors, relationships. My director of PR at the time, another huge mentor of mine, just talked to her the other day, a woman by the name of Julie Yenichek, who was director of PR at the time, and immediately saw, hey, this isn't your passion, right? And I said, no, really isn't. I want to get back into sports. And she said, okay, great, I'll help you do that. Did you know we had a sports marketing department here in Lowe's? I said, no, I had no idea. I didn't know what sports marketing really was at the time, if I'm being honest. She said, no, we sponsor, we do a lot of stuff in NASCAR. We sponsor Jimmy Johnson's car in NASCAR. We do a lot of college basketball. So I said, okay, I'd love it. She said, I'm going to introduce you to the director, and I don't mind if you start doing some stretch projects. Stretch project being, stuff that's outside of your job description. If you want to take on some work, I'm happy with you doing that, as long as you can manage everything. So that was the beginning of me being frantic and always overworking myself, as I tend to do sometimes. But I did that and got introduced to him and started writing like race recaps. Because writing communication has always been my thing, so I started doing that for the Lowe's Racing website and developed relationships with them. And next thing you know, they pull me over and I'm doing that full time. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I got recruited by Dick's Sporting Goods to come and be like a community marketing manager, so like half on their foundation stuff, half on their sponsorships, and did that for a couple of years. And so I just remember like sitting back and thinking, I got all these skills, like I've worked in marketing, I've worked in PR, I've worked in social media. I've got all these skills. Like, why am I not doing this for myself? And I had this random phone call. I can't even remember who the guy was, but I had a random phone call. And the guy was like, hey, man, you ought to think about consulting. I'm like, maybe I should. And so that's kind of when I started thinking about it. But really it's just, over time building up all these contacts and building out all this experience of work that I've been able to do across all this different experience that I've had. And so I just decided, hey, once I have the time, I'm going to start doing this. So really I started this company called the Level 1 Agency, and it's a fancy way of just me, just saying me consulting. But I have a lot of people that I rely on for graphic design, or, I've had some people who've interned for me in the past. And so it's I say me, but there have been other people in the fold for sure. But right now what I'm doing is I'll brag on one of my good clients. This is an organization called Profound Gentlemen. And so what Profound Gentlemen does is I'm helping them with their PR and just kind of their media and stuff. But what they do is there's two guys, Mario and Jason, who started this maybe about 3 years ago or so, and both amazing young brothers under the age of 30 who decided, hey, we see a gap in the amount of teachers who are men of color. And so they went for a Teach for America program, and they started just kind of rallying around a lot of guys who were in the same profession, and they were both placed here in Charlotte. Mario's from Cincinnati, Jason's from Atlanta. So they started rallying around a lot of guys, and next thing you know, they've got, dozens of teachers here in Charlotte who they're providing resources to, whether that is financial advice, whether that's helping them to build their curriculums, whether that's just kind of peer resource, right? Just kind of, how good it feels when you find someone who looks like you and is in the same profession. You naturally gravitate and you help to give them resources. So that's what they do. And so that grew into a chapter into Atlanta and Chicago and Memphis and all these other cities where they're able to really impact all these men of color and help keep them in the profession. So they've kept about 99% of the teachers and I think they're well into the high hundreds of teachers that they have within their group, and they're continuing to grow. They're wanting to grow across North Carolina. So just helping them to tell their story, but they've really done a great job on their own. And I'm always thinking about who's on the other side. So if I can help whoever's on the other side, I'm doing my job. So that's really what it's about. It's not about all this other stuff.
Well, keep doing your job well.
Yeah.
And so where can they find more information about the Steve Smith Family Foundation and your one-on-one agency? What's the social media?
So Steve Smith Foundation, you can find us website stevesmithfamilyfdn.org. You can find us on Instagram at Steve Smith FDN. Same thing for Twitter at Steve Smith FDN. On Facebook, Steve Smith Family Foundation. And for me personally, you can find me on gosh, I can't remember all this crap. I'm on Twitter at G_Littlejohn. My company, the Level 1 Agency, we're at the Level 1 Agency. On Twitter, as well as on Instagram and on Facebook. So I got all three. On Facebook, it's just my name, and on Instagram, I'm at G Littlejohn all
We're
together.
We're going to just add this.
I know, right? Get some show notes or something. That's too much.
Yeah, we're going to add this to the show notes and to the video. But This is Tiffany Lewis. It's been another episode of Let's Talk Game with Gerard Littlejohn. Thank you so much for being on. Me. Thank you for all of the things that you're doing in our community, and keep making an impact.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.